the next idea that I have is I have my journal here and I wanted to put something on a page just like so. And I'm trying to size this up where I can still see the background of this, but kind of cut this down and make a tag to where I can use it as a tuck, as a pocket, and then also make a pocket for this as well. I have an inspiration from Pinterest, and I am going to include that, of course, always. And then we'll see what we come up with. Okay, so I'm just going to flip through my pages here and pick out a few and get started. So I'm just taking my trimmer and I'm going to trim down on the edges. I'm not doing any measurements here. I'm just taking a book page. So initially in the inspiration, it was smaller little pockets. And once I started doing it, I realized I didn't want to cut the pages in half. That was the whole idea of me using inspirational books, because of the positive wording that's placed here and there. So with that being said, I just wanted to cut down the paper as the size that it was and then go from there. So using the Pinterest picture as inspiration, I'm just going to cut down the whole page that I have here, and then I'm going to use this craft paper as the background piece. And the same thing that I'm going to do for the craft paper. I'm not doing any measurements. I'm just holding it up to, I held it up to my trimmer here and I seen where it kind of fit. And so I'm taking the craft paper and then I'm just going to cut a little bit bigger. And I was being a little bit lazy. I could have took out my big trimmer and I was like, well, I already have this trimmer out. So I just started with the side there. And I could have got it done in one piece and then just shifted over. But I already had that on my desk and I didn't have to look for the big trimmer. And as you can see here, once I lined that up, I was ready to go. Then all I needed to do was turn it over to the side and cut off a little bit of the bottom. So every one of these may be a little bit slightly off in size, but it's depending on how the words were written on each of the papers. So the next thing I'm going to do is, once I got what I wanted and got it right down to the size I needed, I went on and took out some ink and inked up the sides. Gonna take that ink and ink it up on all sides. And I ended up doing the back too, because on some of these I was initially looking at one side of the paper, but once I got it down and looked at it, I ended up using the other side. And so I made sure the ink was on each side of the papers, and then inking up a little bit of that craft paper just in case you can see. So this is from Etsy. It is from Carolyn's Musings. I will see if I can find the link and link it in the description box in case anyone is interested. I purchased those with my own money. I liked those and I just wanted to include those in my crafting, and so I purchased those. And then I'm taking some of these tabs, and those are actually from Amazon. I can link those in my link in my Amazon store. And then these tags are from an old tag collection. I don't believe I could find that. If I did, I'll link that as well. But I know the Amazon is recently. So then I'm just trying to make the pocket on the side. Now I did some paper pockets, and I also tried a little bit something different. But with that, it kind of just laid it down there and made a little squiggly and cut it out. But I tried to do a little variety there. So once I ended up cutting these out, I just sized them up according to colors and what I thought would look best. And then just kind of laid them aside and played with them. I just like to show my thought process. I know when I'm watching others, it kind of helps me. So as you can see, the rose colored in that paper and also in my scrapbook paper that I used. So that's where I'm getting. And then you can see the tans in the other two. And that paper really wasn't good for writing on the back of it. So I ended up doubling up those two. So I ended up doing two of them that were doubled up. I wanted to do a little variety anyway. And then, of course, inkling up the edges. And then also I inked up the edges on the printouts, which I like inking up the edges on them, because if you fussy cutting and it's not totally perfect, you can't really tell when you ink up the edges. It hides the imperfections. So, and this is how it turned out. I got out my sewing machine and I sewed around the edges on a couple of them. And then I added the tabs up the top. I added some stickers. And as you can see, the paper made the pockets. And then I put this one through an embossing folder. And it was kind of delicate, so I didn't want to sew around the edges. I just added some score tape and reinforced it with glue. And it held really nicely. And then I added a tab on the side of that one. And I didn't glue it down because I wanted to show another option on this one. If you didn't want to use a pocket, you can always just use a paper clip and paper clip that in and include that in your journal. You don't have to, add a pocket, but I thought that that would be a nice idea to include. And then for me, I ended up using the one that I didn't sew around because I just like that pocket that I embossed. So the other two are cute and fun, and they will be great for other projects. So I'm just going to add that to my nice stash that I'm collecting. And that's the whole idea of this, is once I'm doing it, I'm getting extras so I can include them in future and building my stash. So once I started, I initially wanted to use this also as an extra pocket, but then I realized how thick it was. And so I decided that I would just glue the whole thing down, and then I already have that pocket right there. So I am just going to, first of all, like I said, glue this on the back. That way I can use this as double-sided like the other two. And I have my nice little tag there to pull that out. And just lining it up as best as I can. And so I'm going to slide this into my pocket. And like I said, instead of using it as another big pocket, I'm going to glue the whole thing down and reinforce it with some score tape and store those two away. I was going to store the third one away, but I ended up rescuing it. So here I am. I just put some score tape as I mentioned before, on the back of it, and just added some of my art glitter glue on top. That way I know it's not going anywhere. And I could have just done it 3/4 of a triangle and use it as a pocket, or sewed it in differently, but I just kind of included it in. I don't have much writing or main pages in here. This is sort of kind of like a more of a tuck journal, so I have enough tuck spots, so I just ended up gluing it down. And so I got out those again, like I said, and the third one I'm gonna include because I still have ways to go, and I thought that it would be good to include in a little tuck and use that along with something else later. So if you enjoyed this, give this project a thumbs up. It helps my channel, and I'll see you later, Craftinistas.